You're not going to have any trouble hearing me. I'm a trial lawyer. We speak very loudly. We speak very clearly, hopefully. And unlike my wonderful colleagues here, I did not bring my phone. I did it the old-fashioned way. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to speak here today. It is my greatest pleasure. Watching this video was a true inspiration. I had no idea that this video was out there somewhere, hopefully on YouTube, where I can watch it again with my family. But it was very, very inspiring. So, my name is Seema Mohsin. I'm currently an assistant United States attorney. I was the acting United States attorney in the Eastern District of Michigan for about a year. I've been with the U.S. Attorney's Office for about 20 years, and I was a prosecutor in New York and New Jersey before that. So I've got a 27-year-long career as a criminal prosecutor. I've done it in the state, I've done it locally, and I've done it federally for the last 20 years. It was my great pleasure to be asked to come and speak to you today because, like many of you here, I'm also an immigrant. My family moved to the United States when I was a little girl a long time ago in the early 1970s, when my father, who was invited to come to the United States to work in mental health rehabilitation in New York City. He came here, he wrote a letter to my mother, who was in Pakistan with me and my brothers, and said, "Pack up, we're moving to America." And he put the money in the letter, rolled it up, and he sent it to her. Many, many years later, I asked my mother, I said, "Did you want to come to America?" And she said, "I had no choice. He wanted us to move, so we moved." I was very, very fortunate because I had the most amazing and wonderful parents. I want to tell you a little bit about my parents because I think it's very, very important to understand that we are who we are because of how we were raised and the people who raised us. And we are either successful because of them or despite them, and sometimes both. In my case, my parents both were born before partition, and that's an important fact because they were children when partition happened. My father's family is from Punjab, my mother's family from Andruni, Lahore. My mother was Kashmiri, my father was Punjabi. Big deal back then, maybe still a big deal today, big deal back then, right? Different families, different backgrounds. My father's people migrated during partition. My mother stayed where she was. They both witnessed a tremendous amount of violence and fear, and that shaped their lives. But one thing about their generation that's always struck me, and that is that, like the American Revolutionary generation, those that were raised after partition, that were children, they were imbued with a dream that was Pakistan. They were imbued with values and, this hopes, dreams about a future that would be Pakistan. And those hopes and those dreams, my parents had those hopes and dreams. They were raised on those hopes and dreams. They presented those hopes and dreams to my brothers and I when we lived in the United States. And the vision that I had of Pakistan was of a beautiful, wonderful place. We didn't get to visit much when I was a child, but I always had this very clear and beautiful picture of the country that was Pakistan. And that came from my parents because when they were children, they were the first generation to grow up in Pakistan after partition. But circumstances being what they were, wars, opportunities being what they were, they came to the United States when I was a child. And it was a difficult time. There were no Pakistanis. They lived just outside of New York City. You had to go 2 hours to get halal meat. There were very, very few people from our background. Nobody heard of Pakistan. When I say that to people today, they say to me, "What do you mean nobody heard of Pakistan? Everybody's heard of Pakistan." I said, "Not in 1972. Not in 1972. And at that time, it was a very, very isolating experience for my family. We had no family in the United States. We had no support system. I cannot imagine the courage that it took my parents to get up, leave Pakistan, come to America, and then try to raise their children with nothing, no family, nothing. And both my parents very humble. My father was a social worker, my mother was a secretary. My mother worked nights, my father worked days, so somebody was always home with the kids. And they had one rule, beta, paro, 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 right? Study, study, study. So we studied, and studied, and studied. And I decided that I wanted to become a lawyer. My mother was horrified oh my God, what is going to happen? No one's going to marry her. My father was very, very proud. Avada was his favorite movie. Does anybody know what Avada is? Has anybody seen Avada?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That was a fantastic movie. It was a movie made in the 1950s in India. And it is a movie about a man who commits a murder. His father is a judge. And the judge's ward is the lawyer that represents his son. Fabulous movie. I've seen it. It's in black and white. It's wonderful. But it was my father's favorite movie. He wanted me to become a lawyer. He was, to me, everything. He gave me everything that I am. So I wanted to start off by talking about my parents because I think it's very, very important to understand that I am nothing without what they gave me and the sacrifices they made and the struggles that they had and their kindness and their generosity. And then I am nothing without the kindness and generosity of the Americans that helped us when we first came to the United States. We had a tremendous experience. We had a truly wonderful childhood and upbringing in the United States. And so when I said I wanted to be a lawyer, my father said, go for it, do it. And he supported me. My mother was horrified, but my father supported me. And that's an important fact. I think for women across our culture and every culture, supportive men are so important. Whether they're husbands or their brothers or their fathers, it's a very important fact. And I had that, I was lucky. I set my sights on becoming an assistant United States attorney because when I went to law school, I got an opportunity to intern with the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey. It was a fantastic experience, one that I will never forget, and it made me dream even bigger. I want to be an AUSA, I want to be an assistant U.S. attorney. But to do that, you need experience, and you need talent, and you need skill. And I needed all those things because I didn't have any of them. So I applied to work for the DA's office in New York City. Robert Morgenthau was the district attorney. He had been since 1975, one of the longest serving district attorneys for New York City. And that office has the reputation nationally of being the best county prosecutor's office in the country. So I had the opportunity to apply there. Very stiff competition. Thousands of applicants from across the country apply to that office. But I was very lucky. I worked hard. I had good grades in school. I distinguished myself, and so I was able to get that job on my own merit because, again, I don't know anybody. I didn't have any friends or connections. When I got that position, Mr. Morgenthau interviewed me in my final round and told me that I was the very first Pakistani, man or woman, to ever be an assistant district attorney in New York City. So I was very proud of that fact. And my father, more importantly, was very proud of that fact because it's not my achievement, really. It's his achievement. And so I truly enjoyed gaining experience working in that high-pressure environment, becoming a trial attorney. And from there, I moved on to the Attorney General's office in New Jersey, and I did complicated investigations, human trafficking, organized crime, where we used very sophisticated techniques, wiretaps and cooperators and things like that to investigate and dismantle complex criminal organizations. So after several years of engaging in sort of this type of experience, I was fortunate enough to get hired by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Detroit, where I worked for the last 20 years. And I've continued to do the work of a prosecutor in that office. Tremendous experience, everything I'd ever hoped for. Every day I wake up and I say, oh my God, I get to be an AUSA. Oh my God, I get to go to court and I get to do the work that I love to do. Every single day, 27 years later, I still love doing it. And I love the fact that being a woman, being a Pakistani, was totally not an issue for me, getting any of these positions. That's what I think is also tremendous. I never really realized how important your background is to others, to inspire others, as we saw in that video. Never thought about that. But I can tell you that since becoming acting U.S. attorney, it has become apparent to me that we do need to inspire our young women. We need to inspire all of our women, young or old. We need to inspire our young men to understand that women have a role and a place, and we need to support each other. And so I'm very, very grateful that I've had this opportunity both to serve my country, both to serve women, both to serve Pakistani American women, to do all of those things through the course of my life. And I'm very grateful to all of you for listening to me. Thank you.